Chapter 1. The broadcast begins. The world was glued to their screens. It wasn't just any broadcast, it was a highly publicized, once-in-a-generation televised conversation between two titans of global discourse, Donald J. Trump, the former President of the United States, and Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso. The setting, a neutral studio in Geneva, decorated with flags and a golden podium. The ambience, tense. The stakes, unpredictable. The moment the cameras rolled, you could feel the electricity in the air. Trump wore his trademark red tie and smirk, adjusting his sleeves. Traoré, calm and collected, looked straight into the camera, unshaken. Chapter 2. Opening jabs. Trump began with bluster. "I built the strongest economy in history. Africa should learn from us." Traoré replied, "What you built was unsustainable for the world. We are not looking for a master, we are building our own path." The moderator swallowed hard. This wasn't going to be an ordinary exchange. Chapter 3. Digging into policy. When asked about foreign intervention in Africa, Trump waved it off. "We helped you. You needed saving." Traoré countered with piercing clarity, "What you call saving, we call exploitation." Silence. Chapter 4. The audience reacts. Social media exploded. Did Traoré just call out Western colonialism? Live. Trump looks like he wasn't ready for this smoke. Hashtag Studio Showdown began trending. Chapter 5. Economic firestorm. Trump attempted a pivot. "We've created wealth the world envies." Traoré leaned forward. "At what cost? Your financial systems drown nations in debt. We want dignity, not dependence." The studio murmured. Commentators were stunned. Chapter 6. Personal attacks. Trump, feeling cornered, snapped, "You're just another military strongman pretending to be a reformer." Traoré raised an eyebrow. "Better a reformer with courage than a businessman with bankrupt morals." A gasp rippled across the room. Chapter 7. Walkout warning. The moderator attempted to mediate. "Let's keep this civil." But Trump stood up, removing his mic. "This isn't journalism. This is an ambush." Traoré didn't flinch. Sometimes, the truth does feel like an ambush when you've been hiding from it. Chapter 8. The exit. Trump stormed off the set. Cameras kept rolling. The sound of his footsteps echoed behind the scenes. Viewers held their breath. Traoré remained seated, hands folded, composed. "This isn't about egos. It's about systems. And we are done playing by the old ones," he said into the camera. Chapter 9. The fallout. Clips of the moment trended worldwide. Trump walked out after Traoré wrecked him with facts. "This is a historic takedown." Traoré didn't shout, he dismantled. Chapter 10. Legacy in motion. The incident became a cultural milestone. Traoré's calm strength was celebrated. Trump's walkout was debated, some calling it strategic, others a collapse. Students in Africa began watching. The clip in schools. Political science classes analyzed the rhetoric. Memes were made. Books were written. In the end, this fictional confrontation wasn't just about two men. It was about a world changing, one voice at a time. Chapter 11. The ripple effect. The fallout from the televised confrontation was immediate and profound. In every corner of the globe, people replayed the moment. Traoré's calm defiance and Trump's abrupt walkout became the talk of the day, the week, the month. Social media exploded with memes, discussions, and debates. It was no longer just a clash between two men, but a cultural moment that symbolized a broader shift in global power dynamics. In the cafes of Ouagadougou, university lecture halls from London to Lagos, and even corporate boardrooms in New York, the Traoré moment was dissected, analyzed, and celebrated. It inspired countless young activists who had long felt marginalized and unheard. For the first time, many felt seen. Traoré's words, measured but firm, echoed in the minds of millions. True leadership is not loudness. It is the strength to listen, the courage to stand, and the humility to serve. Chapter 12. Behind the curtain. Backstage at the studio, the producers scrambled to manage the chaos. Trump's team was furious. Many had not anticipated the intensity or the sharpness of Traoré's rhetoric. Several advisors argued about the ramifications of the walkout, debating damage control strategies. Leaked internal memos later revealed that Trump's team had attempted to push for stricter controls on the interview's flow, hoping to keep Traoré on the defensive. But those plans crumbled under Traoré's unexpected composure. Meanwhile, Traoré's team quietly celebrated a victory that was not just political but symbolic. They understood the power of narrative, how a single televised moment could change perceptions overnight. Chapter 13. Global Youth Mobilization. Inspired by Traoré's example, youth movements around the world took new shape. In cities from Rio de Janeiro to Mumbai, young leaders cited Traoré's example as proof that change was possible without shouting or spectacle. International youth summits began featuring sessions analyzing the broadcast, exploring themes of leadership, dignity, and integrity. Social media campaigns used hashtags like #TheCalmRevolution and #TraoréEffect to promote nonviolent activism and thoughtful engagement. Schools incorporated the event into civics curricula. High school students debated Traoré's leadership style versus Trump's bombastic approach, learning the value of measured discourse. Chapter 14. The Global Diplomatic Shift. Diplomats noticed the shift, too. Countries began reaching out to Burkina Faso for partnerships, seeing Traoré as a new kind of global player, one who combined revolutionary zeal with strategic calm. European and Asian leaders scheduled calls with Traoré, intrigued by his ability to project strength without aggression. International organizations invited him to speak at forums on sustainable development and governance. The broadcast was cited in think tanks and policy papers as a turning point, evidence that emerging leaders from the Global South were reshaping international dialogues. Chapter 15. The Counter-Narrative. Despite the momentum, Trump's camp launched a fierce counter-narrative. Conservative media painted the broadcast as a biased ambush, accusing Traoré of grandstanding and disrespect. But these claims fell flat among younger and more diverse audiences. Polls showed a widening generational and ideological gap, with many Americans expressing admiration for Traoré's poise. Analysts noted that while Trump's base remained loyal, the broader electorate was shifting, drawn not to bluster, but to authenticity and substance. Chapter 16. Personal Growth. Away from the public eye, Traoré reflected deeply on the broadcast's impact. He knew that moments like this were fleeting unless backed by real change. He doubled down on domestic reforms, focusing on education, anti-corruption, and infrastructure. Visits to rural areas were no longer ceremonial. They were hands-on engagements. Traoré often told his aides, "Leadership is a marathon, not a sprint." This broadcast was the starting pistol, not the finish line. Chapter 17. Media Evolution. The broadcast sparked broader discussions about media's role in politics. Networks worldwide experimented with new formats prioritizing depth over drama. Interviews became more respectful, less combative. Journalists learned to moderate without micromanaging, allowing truth to surface naturally. Media schools added the Traoré interview as a case study, teaching future journalists the power of authenticity. Chapter 18. Cultural Reflections. Artists and creators found inspiration in the broadcast. Musicians wrote songs about courage and calm. Filmmakers produced documentaries, examining the power dynamics between the two figures. Street artists painted murals in cities from Johannesburg to New York, immortalizing Traoré's calm gaze and Trump's retreat. Books, podcasts, and plays reimagined the encounter, ensuring the moment remained in the cultural memory. Chapter 19. Legacy and Leadership. Years later, historians would mark the broadcast as a defining moment in early 21st century politics. Traoré's leadership style was studied alongside icons of integrity and resilience. The term Traoré effect entered academic discourse, a phenomenon where measured, principled leadership could dismantle brash egos and change narratives. Young leaders worldwide aspired to emulate the calm courage displayed that night. Chapter 20. A New Dawn. As the dust settled, the world shifted imperceptibly but irrevocably. Old certainties about power, respect, and influence were challenged. In Burkina Faso, the people celebrated a leader who had not only spoken truth to power but inspired millions to do the same. The broadcast was more than a moment of confrontation. It was a beacon for a new kind of leadership, one rooted in dignity, respect, and unwavering resolve. Chapter 21. The International Response. World leaders reacted with a mixture of surprise and admiration. Many had anticipated a heated, performative confrontation, but instead witnessed a display of restraint and clarity. United Nations officials invited Traoré to speak at the upcoming General Assembly, praising his example of leadership. In private meetings, diplomats discussed how Traoré's approach might redefine diplomatic discourse. The old model of bombast and showmanship was being replaced by substance and calm conviction. Meanwhile, international media outlets scrambled to feature analyses and editorials about the new face of leadership, rising from Burkina Faso. Chapter 22. Trump's Political Crossroads. Back in the United States, the reverberations of the broadcast continued to trouble Trump's campaign. Advisors debated whether to double down on his usual style or pivot to a more measured tone. Polls indicated that younger voters were increasingly disenchanted with his approach, despite attempts to minimize the event's significance. Critics seized upon the walkout as a symbol of his faltering grip on public opinion. In an exclusive interview, a former close aide commented, "That moment exposed a vulnerability we hadn't seen before. It rattled not just Trump, but the entire movement." Chapter 23. The Rise of the Traoré Generation. Inspired by the broadcast, youth movements across Africa and beyond began referring to themselves as the Traoré Generation. They embraced values of dignity, respect, and measured action. Social media campaigns rallied millions to peaceful protests, educational initiatives, and community-building efforts. Traoré himself encouraged this movement, often emphasizing that true change required participation and responsibility from everyone. The Traoré generation became synonymous with a new wave of activism, one that valued calm conviction over chaos. Chapter 24. The media's new role. In the wake of the broadcast, journalists reflected on their role in shaping political discourse. Media organizations launched programs to train reporters in ethical interviewing and to prioritize substance over spectacle. Viewership habits shifted as audiences demanded more thoughtful content. Slow journalism gained popularity, focusing on depth, context, and nuance. The Traoré interview became a staple case study in journalism schools worldwide, illustrating the power of authenticity. Chapter 25. Rebuilding Trust. Recognizing the fractured state of public trust in institutions, Traoré launched initiatives aimed at transparency and accountability in governance. He invited citizens into participatory forums, allowing for direct dialogue with government officials. His administration increased the use of open data platforms, giving the public real-time access to policy decisions. These efforts reinforced his image as a leader, committed not only to rhetoric, but to tangible, systemic change. Chapter 26. Global Influence. Traoré's influence spread beyond politics. Corporations began re-examining leadership styles, seeking to incorporate empathy and calm decisiveness into their management. Educational institutions updated curricula to include leadership lessons based on his example. Non-governmental organizations invited him to lead workshops on conflict resolution and ethical governance. His presence symbolized a shift toward values-driven leadership on a global scale. Chapter 27. The Cultural Repercussions. Artists, musicians, and writers continued to draw inspiration from the broadcast. Documentaries chronicled the story, while novels and plays explored themes of power, humility, and resilience. Public murals in cities around the world immortalized Traoré's composed expression, juxtaposed with Trump's frustrated exit. These cultural artifacts helped sustain the movement's momentum, ensuring its values endured beyond politics. Chapter 28. The Personal Toll. While celebrated publicly, the pressure on Traoré was immense. He faced criticism from political opponents, internal government factions, and external powers resistant to change. His family and closest advisors witnessed the toll that leadership exacted, from long nights to intense scrutiny. Yet Traoré remained grounded, often retreating to moments of solitude and reflection, drawing strength from his roots and community. Chapter 29. a blueprint for leadership. Political scientists began to articulate what they called the Traoré model. Leadership characterized by integrity, calm resolve, and service. Workshops and seminars worldwide taught this model, encouraging leaders at all levels to adopt its principles. It emphasized listening over speaking, humility over ego, and action over rhetoric. Chapter 30. The Legacy. Years later, the broadcast remained a defining moment in modern history. Traoré's example inspired generations, shifting global paradigms of power. In Burkina Faso, schools taught the broadcast as a lesson in leadership. Globally, his story became synonymous with the triumph of dignity over spectacle. As the world continued to evolve, the Traoré effect endured, proof that true leadership need not shout to be heard. Chapter 31. The Educational Revolution. Inspired by Traoré's leadership, educational reforms swept through Burkina Faso and beyond. Curricula shifted focus to critical thinking, ethical leadership, and civic responsibility. Schools established leadership days, where students discussed the qualities exemplified by Traoré during the pivotal broadcast. Scholarships were created to support youth initiatives, promoting dialogue and nonviolent activism. Universities hosted conferences to analyze the broadcast's impact on global politics, fostering a new generation of thoughtful leaders. Chapter 32. The Economic Renewal. Traoré's focus on sustainable development began to bear fruit. Investments poured into renewable energy, agriculture, and technology startups. The country witnessed a surge in entrepreneurship, especially among young people who felt empowered by the Traoré effect. International partnerships blossomed based on mutual respect and shared goals. Traoré emphasized economic independence balanced with global cooperation, rejecting exploitative models of the past. Chapter 33. The Environmental Awakening. Recognizing the link between environmental health and national prosperity, Traoré championed green policies. He initiated large-scale reforestation projects, clean water campaigns, and sustainable farming practices. His speeches highlighted the moral imperative to protect the planet for future generations, aligning environmental stewardship with leadership and dignity. These efforts gained global recognition, positioning Burkina Faso as a model for eco-conscious governance. Chapter 34. The Art of Diplomacy. Traoré redefined diplomacy by emphasizing respect and listening. His meetings with world leaders were marked by patience and genuine engagement rather than grandstanding. This approach thawed previously tense relations and opened new avenues for collaboration. His calm demeanor earned him respect even from traditional adversaries, proving that power exercised with humility could achieve more than force. Chapter 35. The Personal Journey. Behind the scenes, Traoré continued to grow personally. He dedicated time to meditation, reading, and community service. Despite international fame, he remained grounded in his origins and values. He often credited his upbringing and the wisdom of elders for sustaining him through challenges. His story became one not only of political triumph but of human resilience. Chapter 36. Challenges and Resistance. Change, however, was never easy. Some factions within the government resisted Traoré's reforms, clinging to old habits and power structures. International players with vested interests also pushed back, wary of the new order Traoré represented. Yet, through negotiation and unwavering commitment, Traoré navigated these challenges, using dialogue rather than confrontation to advance his vision. Chapter 37. The International Youth Summit. To celebrate and expand the Traoré generation, an international youth summit was hosted in Ouagadougou. Thousands gathered to share ideas, build networks, and commit to peaceful leadership. Traoré's keynote address reminded attendees that leadership was a shared responsibility. Each of you holds the power to change your community, he said. Let this generation be remembered for courage tempered by wisdom. Chapter 38. The Media Transformation. The media landscape continued evolving. New outlets prioritized fact-based reporting, and journalistic integrity improved. Globally, the Traoré interview became a cornerstone example in journalism ethics courses. Media professionals embraced their role as facilitators of meaningful dialogue rather than instigators of spectacle. Chapter 39. The Cultural Legacy. Books, films, and music celebrating Traoré's leadership flourished. Documentaries captured his journey from a revolutionary to a statesman. Artists used his image and words to inspire hope and perseverance. These cultural products helped embed his ideals deeply into collective consciousness. Chapter 40. A Vision Realized. As the decade progressed, Traoré's vision of leadership reshaped not only Burkina Faso but resonated globally. His emphasis on dignity, service, and calm strength influenced policies and people worldwide. Though challenges remained, the trajectory was clear. A world slowly but steadily embracing leadership, rooted in authenticity and respect. Chapter 41. The Quiet Diplomacy. While much of the world focused on headlines and viral moments, Traoré quietly worked behind the scenes to forge alliances. His diplomatic style, grounded in listening and mutual respect, opened doors previously closed. He met with leaders from diverse backgrounds, finding common ground on issues like climate change, education, and human rights. His influence grew not through grand speeches, but through consistent, thoughtful engagement. Chapter 42. A New Political Paradigm. Political scholars began describing Traoré's approach as a narrative democracy, leadership shaped by storytelling, integrity, and empathy rather than coercion or spectacle. This model inspired emerging leaders globally who sought to rebuild trust in institutions by connecting authentically with their communities. Conferences worldwide featured sessions dedicated to understanding and applying this paradigm. Chapter 43. The Digital Movement. The Traoré effect found fertile ground in digital spaces. Online platforms hosted discussions, workshops, and campaigns advocating for responsible leadership. Youth-led initiatives harnessed technology to amplify their voices and hold leaders accountable. The digital age, once criticized for fostering division, became a tool for uniting and educating through this movement. Chapter 44. The Global Leadership Network. Inspired by Traoré's example, a coalition of young leaders across continents formed the Global Leadership Network. This group prioritized collaborative problem-solving, ethical governance, and cross-cultural understanding. The network held annual summits and exchange programs, fostering a new generation equipped to lead with courage and compassion. Chapter 45. Trials and Triumphs. Traoré faced inevitable challenges. Economic downturns, political opposition, and personal loss tested his resolve. Yet, through adversity, he remained steadfast, often quoting a proverb from his childhood. A river cuts through rock not, but because of its power, its persistence. His resilience became a beacon for those facing their own struggles. Chapter 46. The Mentor. As his influence grew, Traoré took on the role of mentor. He personally supported young leaders, entrepreneurs, and activists, offering guidance rooted in experience and empathy. Many credited him with shaping their paths, describing him as a leader who listened more than he spoke, who led by example rather than decree. Chapter 47. The Global Classroom. Universities worldwide introduced courses examining Traoré's leadership and the broadcast that sparked a movement. Case studies, role plays, and critical analyses became part of the curriculum. Students from diverse backgrounds debated the nuances of power, humility, and communication exemplified in his style. Chapter 48. The Enduring Symbol. Years passed, but the image of Traoré's calm composure against Trump's walkout remained iconic. It symbolized the possibility of change through dignity and steadfastness. Statues, murals, and memorials commemorated this moment, reminding future generations of the power of principled leadership. Chapter 49. Preparing the Future. Traoré worked to ensure the movement outlived him. He established foundations focused on leadership training, education, and community development. He encouraged decentralized leadership models, believing that true change arose from empowered individuals rather than centralized authority. Chapter 50. The Final Address. In his last public address before stepping down, Traoré reflected on the journey. "Leadership is a torch passed hand to hand," he said. "May we always carry it with honor, humility, and the courage to face truth." The world listened, not with the noise of politics, but with the silence of respect. Chapter 51. The Passing of the Torch. After stepping down, Traoré dedicated himself to nurturing future leaders. He traveled across continents, sharing wisdom and encouraging youth to embrace responsibility with humility. His presence was a living testament to the power of measured strength, inspiring those who would shape tomorrow. Chapter 52. Enduring Impact. Decades later, historians and citizens alike recognized the broadcast moment as a pivotal turning point. It symbolized the triumph of calm conviction over ego-driven spectacle. Schools taught it as a lesson in leadership. Leaders invoked its spirit during crises. The Traoré effect remained a guiding principle for generations. Chapter 53. A world changed. The world that followed was quieter but wiser. Nations embraced diplomacy rooted in respect. Citizens demanded authenticity from their leaders. And somewhere, deep in the heart of Burkina Faso, a young boy read about the man who showed the world that true power lies, not in shouting, but in listening. Epilogue. The legacy lives on. In the end, the story wasn't just about a televised clash or two men on a stage. It was about a moment when leadership transformed, becoming a beacon of hope, resilience, and dignity. And that moment, captured in calm words and decisive action, continues to light the path forward.